An action, and welcome to PnP Weekly episode 173. It is 4th of July, 2022. Happy Independence for USA. It's a normal working week, of course, in the rest of the world. But I actually have the benefit here, which is I have a free evening, which is really, really cool. That's so rare. I have a Monday off. So, well, not off. But
well, actually, there was one thing I wanted to ask you.
Hit me. Can I send you a meeting? Anyway, so yes. In PnP Weekly, I always talk about the latest in Microsoft 365 all up, and typically I always have a visitor in the show as well. Before we go to who's the visitor of today, my name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm a principal product manager. I got the title right. In the Microsoft 365 platform, and with me as a co-host is Waldek.
Hi everybody, my name is Waldek Mastykarz, and I am cloud developer advocate for Microsoft 365 at Microsoft.
And you're not the only advocate in this call, right? So the visitor of today is...
Yes, so today we'll talk to my colleague, Garry Trinder, who in his past life used to be an MVP, before that was consulting on Microsoft 365. And these days, he's, as I said, my colleague on the Cloud Advocates for Microsoft 365 team. So we will talk to him about his career, his journey, what he used to do in the past, how he looks at learning, tips and tricks there, and also his experience and his tips for people getting involved in the Microsoft 365 community.
Yeah, that was, we've already recorded that, just a teaser to clarify that out. It was
No, we are clairvoyant.
Where?
Yes, I am.
That's a too fancy word. I have no idea what that means.
Looking into the future.
Oh, interesting. Okay, anyway, let's jump on that interview. We have no idea what's going to happen there. We're looking into the future with open-minded. So let's jump on the interview with Garry Trinder. Garry, back to you. So, welcome, Garry Trinder from UK. We'll get to the city and location in a second, to the PnP Weekly episode 173. As we started on the intros, this is the last season. No, this is not the last season. This is the last episode of this season.
You want to tell me something? We didn't talk about it yet. Like, you're just dropping the bomb now.
Yes. No, this is not the last episode of PnP Weekly. But anyway, you've been actually in the PnP Weekly before as well, haven't you?
I have. It was a while ago. I was trying to find the number, because episode numbers are really important. I just couldn't find it, but I do know it was. It was so long ago. Like, so many things have changed. Just like I can't even think of what I was doing. Episode
57. 57.
That's a while ago.
That is
a few years ago, actually. In fact, cool. Yeah. Now. And for that reason, let's actually start with intros. No, before we go there, what's the background? Who are you? Where do you live? What do you do for a living?
So, as you introduced me, my name is Garry Trinder. I'm in the UK. I work for Microsoft. You mentioned city, actually, and that was quite interesting, because the big town next to me actually got city status, which is kind of a big thing. So that's Doncaster in the north of England. So I'm, not always good down in London, so it's nice to go, but big cities are not necessarily my thing. But I work for Microsoft. I'm a cloud developer advocate, a role which I've only just started. So I've been at Microsoft for, well, not even a year, and this is my second role. So it will be a year in August. So just in, and I moved from consulting. So I worked for Microsoft as a modern work consultant and moved into cloud advocacy team as a cloud developer advocate focusing on Microsoft 365.
So a lot has actually happened since last time we were actually in the chat.
I was thinking about this earlier. Actually, what happened was last time I wasn't an MVP. So I was an MVP for 2 years, joined Microsoft, lost my lost my MVP status, got a nice little gold
ring. Part of the crew, part of the ship.
We had the pandemic, obviously. which yeah, we're not going to talk about that because that's that. And I became a dad as well in all that time.
Congratulations! Yeah,
So
really
thank you very much. So yeah. Oh, and moved house twice.
Twice, yes. What didn't change?
Your
wife?
Yeah. Yes.
It's good to have permanent things in your life for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
Crowned in rocks.
Dog.
Absolutely.
Dog.
Yes, dog. He's down here. He's asleep. Definitely. Everything else seems to have just changed. Yes.
But that's good. And then of course it's good to get to the, maybe you'll find the right role now in the career for a longer time. Can we go a bit back? Can you talk a bit about being a consultant in Microsoft? What does that mean? How did you, let's start with anybody who's kind of interested. I always want to be working in Microsoft as a audience of ours. How would they get to work as a consultant in Microsoft? How was that recruitment process? You don't have to be super blunt and transparent. But
Yep. So I guess kind of a little bit of background of before I joined Microsoft, if you like, in that I've always been part of the partner ecosystem. So I've worked for various different partners of different sizes, if you like, in the UK. So way back when I first kind of get into SharePoint, it was very small consultancy, and then I just kind of grew up to some of the bigger ones. So, and then eventually Microsoft, which is, well, can't get much bigger. So being kind of part of that partner ecosystem, understanding, how Microsoft is operating, and actually getting to the point of working with Microsoft as well. So Microsoft works with its partners to deliver, I guess, programs of work more than anything else, big transformation programs. I was lucky to work on a public sector transformation project, which was run by Microsoft and the consultancy that I was working for. We were asked to come in and help on the SharePoint side, kind of rebuild different solutions and things. So that was kind of my first, I guess, understanding of what consultancies like in Microsoft and how these big projects actually run, and from that, I literally looked on the careers board. So the Microsoft careers, have a look around, see what was happening, and being in SharePoint and obviously Microsoft 365, I joined Modern Work, which is, let's call it a domain within consulting. So it's specific to kind of these transformational projects, digital transformation, productivity, and that would be across all areas. So you'd have security, you'd have collaboration, you'd have unified communications, all those kind of different things. So I joined a team of consultants in the UK, quite a large team. It's strange joining a team and then realizing that team was almost like half the size of the company that you left, and that's just a team of consultants.
True.
So it's scale, right? Of everything's just bigger. But my, I guess, experience of working in other consultancies and working with Microsoft as well kind of give me a good understanding of where you fit in the organization and what your responsibilities are to deliver, programs or projects.
Yeah, I'll come back on this one in a second, related on your start and getting back on the Microsoft. But before we start, I have to ask, you were also super active on the community side, helping with samples and one of the key coordinators of CLI for Microsoft 365. Did that help? Did it have any impact on when you were applying a job or being an MVP?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I always look back at it and think that, getting involved in the community, I was very lucky early on in career that I actually was exposed to the community very early. So the old SharePoint Saturdays that used to happen, this was back in 2011, where people would just get on planes and go to, a location somewhere and just talk about SharePoint.
Crazy talking. That didn't happen.
Exactly, right.
Oh, it wasn't a dream? Wait.
It's maybe a nightmare, but it depends. But getting involved in the community, and actually I was part of a small company that helped run them as well. So I got to see the organization side, and you kind of understand the names of people who are involved. Still names of people that are around today. Mark Anderson being one of them. I remember very in the early days of SP Services, and then speaking to him and meeting him. And that kind of grounded me in that there's this whole world that is there of people who are doing this similar jobs, coming against the same problems, and interacting with them. And as time has gone on, it's kind of changed. So people doing their own blog posts and things originally, but now it's projects being set up the way you can contribute, like CLI for Microsoft 365, and that really kind of does change things because it gives you an opportunity to try things which you've never tried before outside of your current role. So throughout my career, I've kind of done different things. So I've done developer, been consultant, been an architect, managed people. There's elements of going, well, actually, I want to know about product, or I want to just get involved in open source and how does that actually work? And open source is a great way of kind of just exposing yourself to things that you can do that's actually going to have a direct impact. Yeah. I think that's the key thing, is that you're not just working and doing things that you can't show people or say, look, I built this thing and look how many people are using it through an open source project. And I think that from a career standpoint shows that you can do things that are real world. It's not just, I've built an app that's shows something nice and pretty. It's actually, here's something that someone needed, it solved a problem, and then you got involved and you went through the hard graft, if you like, of learning what process you need to go through, or some new skill or new technology that you needed to implement that. So I think that's a huge thing to have on your CV, definitely. And I think in let's say, the modern world of work is, like we said, getting in the room together, and that's not always the thing now. Even if you're in the same country, right, as the rest of the people in your organization, rarely now are we all going to be getting into the same room. So getting involved in open source really does help you build the skills for more kind of asynchronous communication. How do you communicate effectively with other people without actually talking to them, or meeting them physically? And that's going to take up, that's going to be, still there. We'll meet, definitely, but it'll be for different reasons, I think. So I think, again, getting involved in open source and GitHub especially is a really good way to help you with that and learn that new skill, which I think it doesn't matter what role you're in. I think whether you're a developer or not, being able to communicate in that way is it's a different thought process. I think that you need to think about.
Sure.
Do you recall, you mentioned, right, that at some point, like, you were exposed to, community and organizing events and all that. Do you recall, the point in time where you said, like, I want that too. I want to be a part of it. I want to do it too, as opposed to just being an attendee. I want to take an active role in that. And do you recall the time? And if so, do you recall, like, why, like, what was the thing you were after?
So there wasn't one thing. There's I guess a number of things. So whilst I was kind of helping with the organization of just on the day of just running around and trying to be helpful of an event, to then going, okay, I want to get involved this now. I'm seeing people on stage or in a room and talking about all these good things. That's where I wanted to start. It was, that looks really interesting. I wonder what that's like, and what can I talk about as well, because we're all doing different things. Sharing something that you're doing, it might not be exciting to you, but it might solve someone else's problem, right? Yep. And I wanted to basically talk to people and say, I found this cool thing, but I think it solves a problem that other people have. For people to walk away and go, you know what, I can try something different the next day I go to work, and that make a real difference. And I think it's that, right? It's that purpose. It's the not just I'm getting up and speaking, but the reason why you're doing that, what's behind that is that you're essentially helping people. And again, with GitHub, it's the same thing, really. In essence, it's just through a different kind of medium. Whether that's raising issues of new features, or reviewing pull requests, or just making people aware of that there's these tools that are going to potentially help you or solve a problem for you. And it's surprising, you keep reiterating things, and there's always new people coming. So there's always a new audience.
Endless road of new people coming in. It's just every single community call, there's always new people. Every single tweet you do a promo on a community call, you still get like, oh, I wasn't aware of these calls. It's just like, well, yeah, we've been just promoting them now for 5 to 6 years. But again, we get new people into industry all the time as well. So,
but it is an interesting point, right? Because every day, like for every person that is already a part of the community that calls whatever we already do every day, there are 10 new folks who start, or however many that they are. Which kind of brings us to an interesting point. How do you balance kind of repeating yourself? Well, because there are new folks who start, well, we got to keep repeating the same thing, getting them on, repeating the basics, versus catering to folks who have already been around and have that need to, go more in depth with things. Like, how do you balance it out? Because I believe that's also a part of your job, like being an advocate. You're like, a big part of the job is also to bring new people in, to start with the basics and explain folks what they can do, why would they care, and so forth and so on. So how do you balance it out? Like, what are the things you do to avoid it becoming, a rote?
Yeah, that's a good question, because that is the ultimate problem that we're trying to solve, right? Is that there's people at different stages of a particular journey, and there's different places and where people will look for new things, or they will look for things that are more kind of cutting edge. And I think that there's a lot of things in that. Like we mentioned, there's new people to the technology, there's new people to communities as well. So those communities that are there, predominantly an audience of people who have they know the systems, right? They understand what Teams is, they understand what Teams development is. And those are the potential areas where we need to focus on that content that's maybe a little bit more advanced, but also kind of, like you say, catering for the odd new people who are joining these communities, but they already have an idea because they've searched the community out, right? They've got an understanding of that ecosystem. Whereas the people who are, let's say, I don't know, have a Google background or an Amazon background, they're not going to know about these communities. So how do we reach them? So as an advocate, then we're reaching out to these people through maybe events that they hold, meet them where they are, or again, through the docs. People are going to look for, where do I begin? Microsoft Docs is a resource for that. Are we catering for those people that are, literally starting from scratch, and that there's no assumed prior knowledge? It's a difficult one, because, like I say, everyone's at different levels of the journey, right? And we need to make sure that there's content that's targeted to, I guess, the journey that you're at. How does someone go from being, I've no idea about what Teams even is, to building an app, to then moving through those advanced stages, and understanding what that journey is? So I think that's the kind of the thoughts, I guess, that we go through to really help people on that journey, not just go, okay, you've built a Hello World app and now you're done. Right, off you go. You can find out for yourself. The world.
But I think also the conclusion is that there's no simple version of truth to that answer, which says how do you cater? Because it's just every single human being is separate. Every single human being has a different way of learning. Every single human being has different interests and different things spark them. And I guess that's always the big challenge for us who create the content and create the audience and try to find audiences to reach or to provide a sufficient amount of different mediums and channels for people to get kind of like, oh, interesting. And then they can get to know all of the rest of it. But getting that initial spark in place, which is really the key. So
definitely.
Yeah,
it's an interesting challenge.
It is a balance too, right? Because on one hand, there is the scale, right? Like if you look at devs, like we have, I don't know, 2 million developers or how many million developers there are across the world, right? So there's the scale. On the other hand, like it's hard to address everybody, as you said, the same way because people are different, right? So like if you look at the other side of the spectrum, you arrive at the long tail of people. I'm interested in building an app with specific API on PHP on serverless as a very niche thing, right? And you will have the long tail of this very specific things people need to solve immediately, for which we might not have an exact match because it's combination of 20 or more different things that they need exactly, right? So I think like at the end of the day, we are all over this spectrum from really talking broadly about what is it that you can do to a few specific things as we go to like, hey, I solved this, or we have a sample for that, and that thing might match exactly the thing you need, assuming you're looking for a sample and not a video versus a TikTok or versus something else that's your preferred way to learn.
Yeah. Oh, you mean the broadcasting this guidance in television is not a good idea anymore? You see?
A teletext.
Remember the video with Jeff Teeper and Satya Nadella doing the Microsoft show in television
in the 80s. Yeah, because they both
was it 90s? It's 92 or something.
Yeah.
It's a really awesome.
Was it telemarket or was it advocacy? Like, they were both on the show. Yeah.
Welcome back. We're here live to take your questions, and I think we've got our first caller on the line from South Carolina. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Tom?
That's correct, Tom.
How can we help you, Tom? Drive the latest in inventory management technologies like just-in-time inventory management, for example, yet at the same time leverage our existing mainframe or mini computer data. In this case, we'll have a live connection to an AS400. And to build this system, this piece of the system, we've brought up Satya Nadella. Satya?
Thanks, Jeff. Before we go into the actual implementation, let's take a quick look at the application architecture. As you can see, the most important architectural requirement for this piece is to be able to integrate data which exists on a host or a mainframe right now into Excel. Excel being our front-end tool, and the AS400 in our case being the data repository. And in addition to that, we also want to be able to add functionality because once we have the data in Excel, we have all the APIs available.
We need to actually find that to the notes of the video because it's hilarious. So
you raise an interesting point there, though, Waldek, about the different types of medium as well, right? Is that of a certain age? Okay, I'm kind of.
We're going that direction.
Yeah, so back when it'd be blog posts and things, I want to read things, but people's habits kind of change to a degree. But we're talking about new people who are joining with, thinking of people who know nothing more than a world that is just digital, right?
Yep.
And going, well, yeah, I want to consume things on TikTok because that makes total sense to me, and that's where I spend my time, and that's where we can make people aware, and it's kind of understanding, okay, well, what resonates with a particular audience and what's going to give us impact of thinking we have an existing kind of community potentially of people who have been around for a while, and that's fine, but we've got new people coming along and we need to cater for their needs. So TikTok or YouTube Shorts, those kind of things.
That's an interesting point, right? Because so let me make it a bit more complicated because why not? Personally, right? Like I cannot learn from a video. Like I cannot have the patience to like sit and watch the video. Like if I know something about, like, let's take development, right? Like I've got a few years of experience, so typically I know exactly what it is that I need to know. I know a few things, but there are a few things that I might not, right? So for that, I want to go to the exact doc, scan through it, and just grab the one thing that I need, and I leave, right? On the other hand, if I were to, I don't know, put in or assemble a cabinet or build a chair or something else, something that I suck at, the default will be a video. I want to see it. I want to see like how people will, attach two pipes together, or how you clean a sink. So it's
every single human being is unique. Some people learn
Exactly.
by reading, some people seeing, and depending on a case, and they're confident they want to use different medium as well.
Exactly the point I'm trying to make. It's not even a person thing.
True.
What if that is a context thing? Like for this type of thing that I'm trying to learn, because X, Y, and Z, because I don't know it enough, because I'm visual when it comes to thing in which I am a beginner, I want to see things, versus if I am well versed in things, I just need this one specific thing, and I don't care about the whole background story and explanation, and no, they just give me this one thing, right? So it's a very interesting thing, like how people learn. I think it's a topic of itself. Like, what is the psychology of learning and assimilating content?
So there's also another angle, if I want to make it even more complicated and just add on top of that, is that people will just naturally gravitate to a certain type of medium because it works for them. There will be some people who, are not necessarily neurotypical, who have different needs, who will say, I don't want to read a blog post because it's just not right for me. But a video where someone's explaining concepts is much more desirable. So it's a hugely complex thing in that, we need to think about these things. And, one thing, joining Microsoft and joining the team that I'm in, I moved from a UK team to a worldwide team, is thinking about different cultures as well. What works for one culture doesn't necessarily work for another. And those are the things that, again, as scale goes up, there's more things to think about. So,
So in the end, we need to do everything, right? TLDR.
That's the spectrum of channels and mediums to people to consume.
Yeah, which I think is coming back to the point though of it's focusing on what's important, right? And that we can do lots of different things, but what's going to give us the biggest bang, if you like, at that particular point for that particular audience. We, like you say, you can do everything, but some things are going to be, are we catering from a very, very tiny audience that actually they're not the people we really need to reach, because we need to generate some interest and inspire people to go on and start maybe building on a platform that they've never even thought about in the past. So those things, I think.
Now, coming back on learning, I'm kind of curious. So coming back on the start of the discussion, when you started as a consultant in Microsoft, you started in the middle of the pandemic, and you've been working from home remotely and all of that. I joined Microsoft back in 2006, and we had an awesome team of 14 SharePoint developers in Finland, which is pretty high. And we basically met every single day in the office, and we were brainstorming and dissecting SharePoint. So then that's how I learned how SharePoint actually works, because it wasn't documented at the time. And of course, it's a completely different ballgame now that we're in the middle of pandemic and we're doing this hybrid work and everything else. And I don't go to office anymore. I haven't gone there that much. How was that organized? What any good kind of a tips which you saw around that? Because that's a huge challenge across the world right now to get people committed and engaged. And in your case, you're still engaged or committed in Microsoft, but you're no longer committed on the organization you actually joined, which is a good example.
Yeah,
What?
it is an interest.
How can
Sorry,
you not
go on.
be not committed to the organization you joined?
No longer in
Explain.
consulting, in advocates. Again, it from an organization perspective, it's recruited you they would probably want to keep you for 5 years, right? Rather than within a year moving to another organization.
Oh,
There's, by the way,
gotcha.
nothing wrong with doing that, so it's completely fine. That happens. We need to find the right ways where we have our passion. But it's an interesting challenge when you think about it, and that comes back onto employee experiences and how do we the importance of getting people connected to the company and organization where they're working.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
it was a very interesting time. I mean, I finished my job on the Friday and started at Microsoft on the Monday in the same office. Well, yeah, just my environment didn't change, so it felt really weird. So that kind of I've joined Microsoft didn't really feel like it because I was just interacting through a screen, right? It wasn't like I could go and meet people, go on site and do all the things of, have
Do
the
you
picture
have a
next to the
badge
Microsoft sign,
already
right?
or not? Do you have a Microsoft badge?
I do now. Yes.
I don't.
do.
So you are more on board than I am actually.
And you,
There you go,
you've been
Vesa.
at Microsoft longer as well.
Why
Wow.
would I need a badge?
Guess that shows
Come
how
on.
much you've not traveled, right?
I guess I have like 5 of them or whatever because they kept renewing them at some point. But anyway, so.
But yeah, there was as soon as we could get together, there was an active kind of push from my management and in the kind of levels higher to get people together to have that time to just chat and just kind of meet each other, try and build those relationships. I think whilst I was fully remote, one thing which I did leverage and one thing that Microsoft is really good at is there's so many communities internal to Microsoft as well. And that is another good way of being able to reach out to speak to people who are not necessarily in your direct organization either. So, there's lots of different, I guess I'm calling they're like organizations, right, within organizations of customer success, which premier field engineers, what they became, and sales, and joining a community where actually a lot of people mix is a good way to understand, one, the different roles that are out there. Like, it just easy to look at someone's job title and just think, what is that? And then you kind of go, look.
What are you doing actually?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. What are you doing? And it was a good way to understand the wider picture, because it's very easy to just say, I'm a consultant and here are the people that are in my team, and that gets you so far. But actually, you need to know a lot more, because you need to interact with a lot of people. It's the realization of my onboarding of, if you want to do something, you can't do it by yourself. You have to involve others. You have to, understand who you need to speak to, get people together to try and, if you want to change things or you want to do something different, then one voice is not gonna do it. And I think that's been really interesting, because that's just kind of flowed through everything that I've done. There's just always going to be lots of people that you're going to be collaborating with on, whether that's projects or whether that's now in advocacy. That could be engineering, it could be marketing. All these different teams need to come together to work together to actually get a good outcome, whether that's get the project over the line or writing content and distributing it and making an impact that way. But yeah, the communities was a great thing to get involved in, and I did, and that really helped make me feel more of a Microsoft employee over time. I'm obviously going on site eventually really helped, because it was like, yay, I'm going through the door and I could just scan and no one's going to go. Well, I did half expect that walking down a hallway, someone would just go, who are you? What are you doing here? Get out.
Yep. I had the same feeling
No
when
one
I
does it
visited
ever.
campus
Yeah.
like a few weeks back, and you're like, beep, beep, yes, I got in, and then
Still
you're
working.
waiting for
It's
somebody to
still
throw you
working.
out. Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah. But it's of course it's an interesting challenge, and of course the employee experience is a growing theme across the companies because of that reason as well. Now we're having a long discussions again. I guess we need to free you, Garry, pretty soon from this discussion. Let's do a quick top 3, top 5. If somebody would like to get involved in open source community for Microsoft 365, what are your tips? How to get involved?
Come to the issues list, come to the repo. First check out the docs.
Which repo?
Yeah, so in general
repo?
in Microsoft 365, not just CLI. So somebody wants to get involved in open source community work in Microsoft 365 all up. What would be your tips to kind of
So that's you saying something and me thinking something else when you're thinking, I just thought you said CLI for Microsoft 365. But we'll just
okay.
gloss that over.
That is an awesome example of
CLI
highly
is Microsoft
successful. Yeah, that's highly
Exactly, yeah.
successful project. So, but
Bias
how in general? So if it's not just the command line, which is the interesting, how would people be like, hey, I want to be involved? What would be the top 3 things from your perspective?
So I would say go to the PnP site, although it's Microsoft 365 platform now. Go to the site, go to the community site. Whatever your preference is on there, have a look at the different projects. I mean, for me, I scattergunned. I didn't really have one place where I wanted to go. I just thought I'm just going to get used to the process of contributing to a GitHub repository. So one of the tips would be go learn that. Understand what a fork is, how you do a pull request. Just go through that process. Pick a repository that you're interested in, whether it's PowerShell, if that's one of the skills that you've got, or whether it's CLI.
Or docs.
Or the docs. Yeah, the docs, if you just want to.
Or sample.
Yep.
Oh, samples. Yeah, there's so many different options. I say scattergun, right? Just pick whatever's interesting to you. If you want to update docs, then feel free. But it's going to be the same kind of process in a way of how you're going to contribute. So getting over that kind of anxiety, if you like, that fear of, I'm going to push something and will it be accepted and will I have to make changes and how will I make changes? Those are the things that as you do it more, it just becomes easy, so that your first contribution is the one that's going to help you get on that path to just getting better. And once you've gone through it, you'll most likely go, oh, that wasn't too bad. Let's do another. Oh, I've seen this issue in the docs. I wish it was updated. Well, now you can actually go, there you are. There's the change. Yep. Just submit it, right? So change your little area of the world and give back. I think one tip, which I would say, is give yourself time as well. There's no rush. If it takes you longer than you think to do that first pull request, it's no harm. Again, you'll just get better. So everyone's at different stages. Don't be put off by people who are maybe talking in different languages that you're expecting, who are well versed and have been doing this for a while. Don't be put off by that. They've just been doing it longer. You'll get there. On the other side, ask them. A lot of people are really happy to help. I think, who have engaged in open source because they've been through the same process, right? Yep. They've been that person who had that initial anxiety, so they're a great, resource to kind of tap into, as well as the maintainers of the repositories as well. Certainly, that's the approach that we take in the CLI. Yeah, if you have any issues, you have any questions, then we're going to help you out, definitely.
I think
I don't know how many tips that was, but
no, that's good. and kind of a
8
TLDR is be kind towards others, but also really important, being kind to yourself. Don't get fooled on the fact that you should know, you should do it immediately. No. give yourself time and gradually learn things. So it's super important because, again, that helps on the anxiety part and dealing with that imposter syndrome problem, which quite often people actually have. So going over that tip is super important.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
Anything interesting on your side, Garry? What you're going to do in this week or upcoming weeks? Anything or catching up on what am I supposed to do within this role? What's happening?
Yeah. So I guess the end of the year into the new year planning is kind of happening. I just so happen to take 2 weeks off holiday. So I'm doing lots of catching up at the moment and just kind of getting involved and learning the role as well. Of I moved from a consultant background into advocacy. It's totally different. The approach to work is different. The team that I'm working in is totally different as well. Realizing that whilst I'm there working, my manager is fast asleep because it's the middle of the night. Those kind of small little things that you need to get used to. Just getting myself orientated again, and then ready to get involved with the different initiatives that we're going to be running in the next 6 months, 12 months.
Yep, sounds really good. Waldek, anything interesting on your side?
Always.
You always have the same answer. Always.
Because it's the same question every week, and some things
it's always the same question. It's always the same question.
Yes, and it's always the same answer. Always, yes. So the planning is coming along nicely. It's this interesting thing where I'm working for another 2 weeks, and I will be off for 4 weeks. By the time I'm back, things like objectives and our plans are, for a big part, already set. For the coming months. So it's kind of just like, I want to leave because it's nice time to leave. The weather is nice, but it's like, oh, then I'm gonna miss the final part of the play. Like, yeah. So is this interesting part of the year, but yeah, we're progressing pretty nicely with planning. We are on the brink of starting a new project, which will be more about can we explain some more, why would you care as a developer about building apps on Microsoft 365? What are the different things you can use? What are the APIs? How does that what is the value add of all of that to you? In other words, why would you care? I'm trying to explain that to devs across the world really, right? So not really folks who are already on Microsoft 365, but folks who are, let's say, one step away from it. They have existing skills. They can build apps already. So they are devs already, but they don't build on Microsoft 365 yet. And maybe they are already inside a company that is on Microsoft, that is on Microsoft 365, but they don't build on it yet. So trying to raise that awareness. Why would they care? What is it that we have to offer? Why it matters? All of that around that, it's something I'm looking forward to. So that's something that we will start in the coming weeks, somewhere when I'm away. So it will be an interesting time to see how does that pan out and what's already there when I'm back.
One step at a time. That just works, absolutely. And you need to have some time off and charge your batteries as well.
Oh,
it's
totally.
Absolutely critical.
On
my side,
gone next week.
I'm going next week as well, yes, for a few weeks, so which is good. So some time prioritizing family and travel inside of the countries, which is good. So going to our Lapland cottage to see if the roof has held its bearings for now for the winter. So we have this really, really rusty without electricity cottage in Lapland in Finland, which is absolutely brilliant.
Called authentic.
Authentic. That's actually really good. But yes, we have electricity with the batteries, but there's no electricity otherwise, and it's a great way of kind of connecting of everything. So just enjoying there's no neighbors, no nothing. You need to row a boat to get there and all of that. So it's just completely disconnected, which is awesome.
So many bad horror movies like spin directly through my mind. Like,
so we probably will not. It's going to take a while us to go there again in autumn, because last autumn we went there with wife. We have 2 dogs, which is good. Otherwise, your mental mind would have actually completely like shattered. But it gets insanely dark. It's just unbelievably dark. So without lights, because there's no start of light anywhere. So if as it was one evening, it was a super cloudy, and you open the door, you just, seriously, there's nothing. You just see dark.
There's
it's
nothing.
Just pitch black. And there's a video on Twitter on that, but it's just mind blowing. And then you put your light on, and you can see the yard. It's just absolutely mind blowing. But then again, on summertime, the sun doesn't set. So on summertime there is absolutely brilliant, but then the autumn trip is, yes, you can see stars, you can see Milky Way, you can see the northern lights and all of that, but if it's cloudy, wow, it's scary.
You don't see anything.
Yes.
That's when you turn the torch on and you just can't see the end of the torch. You're like, whoa,
yeah,
that is
exactly,
dark, right?
exactly. So maybe a flashlight. We're not. We do carry those flashlights with us, not just torches. That's not that disconnected, you know. Not that authentic.
There is torch and there is torch, right? Like I think that there are like, you know, electric or battery powered torches.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
But having a real torch with real fire.
Exactly.
Like,
we do this authentically.
Yeah,
to basics.
You gotta be like set the whole fire, the whole forest on fire, you know.
Anyway, so we gotta go.
On that bombshell.
Few weeks away, so we'll be off with the PnP Weekly. We're going to talk about this one within the intros and outro as well after this one. So thank you, Garry, for being our last visitor for this season. We'll be back with the next one. We'll get you back on the show after 100 episode or something like that. So it's good to always catch up.
Sounds good.
Take a break and
hopefully it'll be less hectic than the last couple of years.
We'll see.
Just want to
famous last words.
Yeah, we will.
We'll see if you will be in the same role at that time. So we'll see.
Ouch! He just came on a team. Let him be.
But you never know. It's realities of life. Come on.
But you never know.
But thank you, Garry, for joining us.
Garry.
We'll jump on the articles together with Waldek. Thank you for this one. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
And excellent. Thank you, Garry, for the great discussion one more time. Good to have you in a show. What was it? You were first time in episode 157. No, 57, and now we're in
157. No one that's in front of it.
A few years back. I guess we do like, 20 of these in a season? 30? I have no idea.
20 more. I think
in
a
year.
semester.
In a semester. I have no idea.
Semester. Yeah. So that would be 20. I think 20-ish.
I don't know. Maybe we should actually do some statistics at some point.
Maybe we should actually count. Yeah.
But math is so hard.
Number of minutes wasted per episode.
Yes. Multiplied by all of the listeners and visitors who keeps on listening.
Like 5.
Yes. Well, that's true. That's. Anyway, so let's jump on the articles of this week. It is the last episode of the season. We've been hinting this now in this episode for quite a few times. So it is. That's why we're so off the script, because typically we are super strict on this model. Let's jump on the articles. We're just pure professionals. Good. So let's start. What?
We are not?
What? So let's start with a updated news from last week. We have quite a few news and blog posts from Microsoft, and then also from community as well. So first one from Jared Spataro from Viva Sales to New Office Experiences. Here's what's new in Microsoft 365, and a nice summary blog post related on the recent announcements, including the Viva Sales, which is coming up as a new Viva module. So Viva Microsoft is something which is a selection of modules. Every one of them have a separate kind of implementation and a background, but they're part of the same umbrella and focusing on the employee experiences. So Viva Sales is the latest one, and that was announced, I think, last week as well, actually. So was it? See? We don't have that one out here. Yes, no, it was announced 2 weeks ago.
June 15th.
My bad.
Yeah.
So there we go. Should have done my research properly. But anyway, so it's really about integrating the dynamics more closely to the team's experiences, and it's a really interesting concept. So really, really interesting to see how that's coming out. And then a lot of new additional adjustments and updates. So kind of a summary blog post from Jared related on what's coming all up in the Microsoft 365. Related on summary blog posts. Ta-da!
Exactly. So we will have yet another overview about what's new in Microsoft Teams, this time June 2022. So another great overview of new features coming to Microsoft Teams, not just for the devs, but also for admins, for people who, how'd you call that? Furnish meeting rooms, if that's the expression, people who, like put the meeting rooms in place, ensuring that employees have a great experience on Teams when they work in the office. So a great overview of new features, devices, capabilities, and so forth and so on. Highly recommended to review, even skim through what's new and relevant to you.
I was just checking that my headphone, I think I have a job rank at 75 if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, so getting certified as well. So that's really, really, really good because I'm super happy with this one. So that means that it's been tested throughout. Now, we also had a June 2022 update on a SharePoint with SharePoint roadmap, which actually includes the OneDrive and Viva Topics and Viva Connections with a podcast integration with Adam Ford, who's a principal design manager for OneDrive and SharePoint. So a great summary blog post again on what has happened within the last month. Some of the stuff, like I was closely involved in creating this one. It feels like a decade ago already, but it is actually early June. So you are correct. So it's just funny how the 1 month seems so long, but a lot of cool new features.
Well, it is an update from June, so yeah.
True. All of the latest updates and changes in June, including all of the partner updates and the integrations in Teams and all of that, because it's all getting more and more integrated. So which is really, really cool. Thank you, Mark Cashman, on that one. So really, really cool summary. Then we had a blog post related on idle session timeouts.
Exactly. So we announced recently new cool feature that if you are on the web app and you will not interact with it for a given period of time, you will be logged out, and that is to ensure that that you will not leave the computer unattended or session expired and so forth and so on, right? So this feature is a great way towards increasing security across Microsoft 365. It works on the web, right? So like it doesn't affect the mobile apps, it doesn't affect the desktop apps, it's only the web apps. So that is one. And two, your company can set the idle timeout, right? So whether you want it to be 5 minutes, 15 minutes, that is up to you. You can set it up in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. Yep,
really, really cool. Good security feature for sure. Because even that, well, I used to work in a shared office for like more than 15 years already. I'm so used to do the Windows and L to lock my machines, but you see people just leaving their computers open. So this is a good security measure as well. Now, Viva Learning SharePoint updates is an update in the Viva blog site, and this is basically focusing on the update on the fact that you can actually feed the Viva Learning experience directly from a SharePoint list. And that's a primary, let's say, objective of this blog post. That's the primary feature. And then there's additional nuances and features and capabilities which are available as well, like Scrum content, which is something Scrum.
Not Scrum, Scorm.
Whatever content which is available and direct URL supports and everything else. Pronunciations are so hard. And then we already noticed this awesome small typo here. I'm sure that the team is getting that fixed, and we will flag that internally for sure. So it is a capital B. It's a capital B. Come on. But at least it's right in here, so that's good. Anyway, then we had a OneDrive file picker version 8 release as well on the developer side.
So when you build apps for work, they are typically all about two things: people and files. And oftentimes when you build a file picking experience, well, you need to be able to browse through the locations, the sites, the libraries, and so forth and so on. find the file that you're interested in, right? And why would you reinvent the wheel? Like why wouldn't that experience be consistent with Microsoft 365, right? So with that, with the new OneDrive picker that we released the other day, you don't need to worry about any of that. With a few lines of code, you can embed it in your app, and your app will have the same consistent experience for selecting files the same as you will find in Microsoft 365. So it's a great way to let developers focus on adding the value in their app, solving problems that are truly specific to their app, and not focus on building picker that is
exposes
like,
the
that is not
OneDrive
a
files.
USB.
And, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. That actually is a really, really cool feature for sure. And of course, every single file should be in cloud. So it's just select from OneDrive. And I've been doing that now.
There are files that aren't on a cloud?
No, doesn't exist. Does not exist.
Floppies.
So
floppies.
Maybe floppies. Maybe I can find a floppy in the background. Anyway, now we also had a update blog post related on introducing apps in the Microsoft Teams VoIP, voice over IP. So now the Microsoft Teams apps are also available in the voice over IP calls. So interesting option as well. So we are evolving the apps and surfacing the same apps experiences in Teams in a different technologies, which is cool as well. Then there was a deprecation, no, not a deprecation, a change announcement in the Microsoft Graph.
Exactly. So we are adjusting URL of the Microsoft 365 app usage report API on the beta endpoint. So preview API, that URL will change. A part of the URL, the contents part of the URL is removed. And again, it is a preview endpoint, so all is well, all supported, all according to our agreement with you, right? So if you use the preview endpoint to get report about the usage of Microsoft 365 apps, you want to adjust that. And that's becoming effective July 25th, 2022.
Pretty soon, but still a nice heads up. And again, beta endpoint, so that's pretty fair as well. Now, there was a nice blog post from Luisa Fries related on how to build a color constraint ratio checker for improved accessibility in Powerapps. And she talks about the accessibility features and how we can adjust things and see the ratio differences between the colors in the Powerapps. An important topic because the accessibility, there are nowadays more and more rules and laws even to apply when you're implementing an application with related on accessibility. So really, really good consideration points as well. Cool stuff. Thank you, Luisa, on that. Then we had a nice blog post from Eli Shai.
Absolutely. So in this article, she talks about Microsoft 365 developers. Who are they and how you start, right? Because oftentimes, you know, many of us have been around for a long time and we kind of already 10 steps ahead. And oftentimes we don't give it enough, or we don't appreciate the fact that every day new people start. And where would they start? How do they get involved? What are the different options from which they can choose? So this is a great summary from somebody who is in community and who has gone through these steps at some point, sharing her experiences and the resources that she values the most. So definitely a great place to start if you're new, just to have this entry point like, hey, let me start from there and build out for the things that are relevant to my work.
Yep, absolutely. Really, really cool stuff. We also had an announcement related on new Microsoft 365 platform community team members. So Anup and Fabio are now officially part of our community team. So they're basically MVPs who are closely involved on coordinating the different work, what we do across open source and community areas. And we're always looking for new members and always looking into extending the core team for getting people more closely involved and then helping us to tell the story about sharing is caring, because again, we are here to help people to succeed. And Anup and Fabio are really good examples of the people who've been contributing for years and being actively involved in the community as well. So really, really cool stuff. Thank you, Fabio and Anup on that. Oop, that showed the sharing thing. This one's interesting around Docker. You've been involved in this, Waldek.
Yes, correct. So just the other day, you announced version 1.15.0 of SharePoint framework, right?
Yep. Yes, we did.
And the one thing that is typical for SPFX is that across the years, as we went from 1.0 to 1.15, toolchain evolves, right? So different versions of nodes, different prerequisites, and so forth and so on. And the one thing that we appreciate is that, well, we acknowledge that you might have a need to go back in time to a project you've built in the past and change something about it without being able to migrate it, to upgrade it, right? So how do you go back and forth? Well, you would need to change dependencies and so forth and so on. There's an easier way, right? So that is to exactly that point. To make it easier for you to switch between the different versions of SPFX, we released a Docker image. Think very lightweight VM with everything prepackaged. You start it and you have the right version of Node, the right version of NPM, Yeoman, Gulp, and everything else you need to run the project you created on that version of SPFX. So now, today, we published a version 1.15.0 of Docker image that runs with that version of SPFX. If you use SPFX, you can now run this image too.
Awesome. This really helps on. I'm sure there's a learning curve related on Docker. We tested that journey for a few times. It haven't really catch on fire, but I think more and more people are looking into doing this because, again, it's super flexible. So
it depends what you define. It didn't catch on fire.
No. Well,
already
again,
in this image. Well,
yeah. Well, it is being used. I'm not saying that it's not being used, but it could have actually been the way of introducing to doing the development from a day one, which we chose not to do. So, but again, it is absolutely a valid option and a great way of doing things for sure. So our dev documentation doesn't start by install a Docker file, but they could potentially. But again, we chose not to do that. So for now, at least. Anything else what we want to have a discussion?
No, next thing. We can have discussion about
Marcus.
anything.
Yeah, that's true. Marcus Miller had a great new blog post related on Fluid, using Fluid Framework in Microsoft Teams app. So, and this is basically a series, third episode on a series where he talks about the Fluid Framework and using that then in a collaborative external application as a Fluid Relay service, what that is, and now integrating that to the Microsoft Teams meeting app. So, thank you, Marcus. These are really, really cool step-by-step guidance on how to make things happen. So he's doing really, really great job on this blog post. Bert Jansen had an announcement related on Pnp Core Sdk.
Yes, he had an announcement about a Pnp Core SDK.
Yes.
Which is a modern .NET library providing a fluent API on top of Microsoft Graph, SharePoint REST, and SharePoint CSOM APIs. If you build for SharePoint and Microsoft 365 on .NET, that might be the API or the SDK for you to use.
Yep. Absolutely. It's Now, then Laura Kokarinen had a blog post related on how to add a custom code via private Azure DevOps artifacts feeds to your project and build pipeline. So basically, as you have your NuGet packages or NPM packages in Azure DevOps, how do you connect to them? So that's how we do, for example, inside of engineering, testing of the new upcoming releases and builds and all of that. So how do I do that? And then she once again does a great job of showing step-by-step guidance on how the things actually work. So thank you, Laura, on that one. Then there was a new blog post from Andrew Connell.
What's new? Unboxing the SharePoint framework v1.15. What's new? What's added? What's fixed? What enhancements are available? AC does a great job, unpacking the release, going through the different changes and steps, along with giving his own opinion and take on the features that are shipped. So it's definitely interesting to get his point too on not just the facts, but also an opinion, like how does that, does that have effect on something and so forth and so on. So really interesting article.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, AC, on that one. Then Mark Rackley had a blog post about Hillybilly dApps. Sounds really interesting, but he uses this Hillybilly term in his work or especially open source community side. And technically what this is that he has a solution which uses DOM manipulation to expose a web parts as a tab. Let's see if I can actually show you that. There we go. So in here we can see two web parts as a tab. being exposed in this section. Now, this is a DOM hack, which means that it's basically, as he calls out, it is provided as is without any type of errors. It is not technically a supported way of doing things. So he's doing DOM manipulation and on runtime rendering of the page. But if somebody somewhere says, we're going to do all of these things and this blah, 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 only if you're going to make this happen, then, well, okay, fine, as long as people understand the consequences of that decision and using these things. So key is to understand how things are being built. So thank you, Mark, on that one as well. Now, Eli Shea had another blog post.
Exactly, and this time she walks us through step by step, how would you upgrade your Spfx project? And the cool thing is, she uses how to do that using CLI from Microsoft 365, which is probably the easiest way out there to really get the list of steps you have to do for your specific projects to bring in from whatever version it is, even if it was 1.0, all the way down to the version you want to upgrade to. It can be the latest 1.15 as of the recording, but you might also want to say like, hey, I have another project on 1.12 and I want to upgrade to that so that all of them are in line, right? So you have these options too. And in this article, she goes through the steps. How would you go through it? What would you run? What you get out? And what are the different things you still need to change, if any? So this is a great article if you work with Spfx. And the cool thing is, Spfx these days is for Teams, Viva Connections, and SharePoint. So despite its name, it's for more than just SharePoint apps.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Eli, on that one. Then there was a blog post from Christine Kolodziejski. Sorry for pronunciation problems on the last name, but she had this is something what we actually talked about with you, Waldek, for quite a few times in the show, which is the Powerapps. It's really, really interesting, but it's pretty ugly every now and then. And she basically focuses on showing how you can make pretty looking Powerapps and really focusing on how you transform that kind of a standard looking button to look something a bit more different, and really detailed step-by-step explains how things are working. So absolutely brilliant job on the blog post. And it's awesome to see then the new implementations in place and really, really, really cool stuff. So I prefer looking Powerapps looking like this than looking like how they are by default. So how would I say this in a polite way? But Christine, thank you for this. Really, really cool. So.
Yeah, and I guess at the end of the day, it's interesting, right? That different companies might have a different way they want to go about it, right? They might want to use this design. They might want to align more with Microsoft 365 or with Teams or with Office. So all depends on the context you use it. And I think that overall, we hear this need a lot, like the ability to be able to consistently theme or skin the app. And I guess that this is a step towards that. It shows that technically it doesn't need to be flat UI. Like it can be anything you want it to with some work. It's not there that you can really apply a skin over an existing app and it changes the way it looks like. But it's a nice step already towards showing that you can achieve more beyond the flat default UI you get. So this is a great example of how you can push the limits and make these apps look more visually appealing, if that's your taste.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. Really cool looking stuff, by the way, and it's a great explanation how to design these kind of things as well. So really, really great stuff. Now, Paula had a blog post. No, this is not a blog post. This is called a video, as it's in YouTube. It's hard, you know. The video. It's a different thing than a blog post. Video. Now, Paolo had a video on as an episode 211 using the PnP team speaker control in Spfx solution. So there's a open source team picker, which you can integrate easily to your SharePoint framework solution for selecting a team. And this is basically a functionality which is then dynamically behind the scenes without you as a developer being worried about it, hitting the graph UIs and getting the information and then rendering the selection for you. So, which is pretty neat way of speeding up the development experience. Then Shane Young had a blog post around search pane.
Yes, Powerapps search pane. You can use that to find different things, right? Collections, variables, controls, formula, anything within your app. So it's a great way to navigate between different elements in your app and more easily find the things you need. So if you build Powerapps, that will definitely save you some time clicking around and trying to find different things. After we have seen the commercial, which we're now looking at, Vesa. Thank you.
You're welcome. You are welcome. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. That can easily happen. So it's okay. Thank you, Shane, for providing the weekly videos as well. These are really, really cool. It's good to have a new perspective and new videos and new content every single week, which is awesome. And then April had a video. These are not blog posts, videos around Microsoft List Calendar color coding with view formatting. So talking about a SharePoint view formatting, which is a JSON-based way of extending the SharePoint list or modifying the look and feel, and then talks about the color coding and how we can adjust things and how we can make things look potentially prettier like that. So we can then color code based on the type of the call or based on metadata. So really cool stuff. Thank you, April, on that. That's it for this week. We already talked about what's going to happen in the following weeks with Garry. Am I now done? Can I go? Can I go? Can I go? Can I go? Can I get sleep? I just need to sleep for 2 weeks.
This is the end.
I don't think this is the end though. So
Volume 1, as we learned, right? Like this is the end of Volume 1, season whatever we are.
Okay. Interesting.
No.
And we needed to stop on a cliffhanger. So I don't know what the cliffhanger is though.
I can name a few, but like I don't like. Do we want to go that way? I don't know. Like
okay. I know exactly. Will the Ignite conference be in person or not? And the answer is. Oh, okay, that doesn't work. No, I guess it's good to close up. We'll be back in end of August, right?
August.
Somewhere around that.
August, yeah.
Yeah, in August. Cool. But thanks to everybody for watching. Please keep on using the hashtag PnP Weekly in the Twitter so we know the new content which is coming up. Thank you for everybody in the community for contributing in our open source and community channels. Again, we're saying this in every single week in the community calls, but we are seriously building the Microsoft 365 for you. So your feedback, your input, that counts because again, we want you to love that and start using that and extending that. That is our objective. So please keep the feedback coming. If something isn't working, tell us more, tell us again, and we will get it adjusted. So every now and then things cannot be adjusted in a matter of minutes or days or months, but your feedback will be heard. So thank you for that. Any last words, Waldek? For now. So
long and thanks for all the fish.
There we go. Excellent. And thank you, Andrew Benson, who's our video editing guy once again for an awesome season. It's been a fun. And we'll come back with a new season starting in August.
Yeah.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.